Hey, what's up guys? This video is for section 0-3, which is operations with integers, and we do have 4 different operations in mathematics. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. But for this video, we are looking at adding and subtracting integers. And this is going to be part 1. Second part of this section is going to be for multiplying and dividing. So I have a couple rules that you guys can follow to add or subtract integers. Now keep in mind, integers are numbers that are negative and positives. They're not fractions, they're not decimals, just numbers with a negative or a positive, including the 0. Now, when you guys add or subtract, there's many ways to learn how to do this with integers, but my rules that I show in my class are the following. Rule number 1, right here, bullet number 1. When you guys have integers with the same sign, so you have 2 integers, negative, negative, or positive, positive, you're going to add the numbers, and the answer has the sign of the numbers. So if you guys have 2 negatives, the answer will be negative. You add the numbers. If you guys have 2 positive, the answer will be positive. Now keep in mind, we are adding or subtracting integers. So don't get confused with the rules that I'm going to show you when we multiply or divide integers. This is adding or subtracting. So when you guys have the same sign, you add the numbers and keep the sign of the numbers. That's going to be your answer, the same sign of the numbers. And the second rule here, when you have integers with different signs, you are going to subtract. So 1 negative, 1 positive, or maybe 1 positive, 1 negative. If the numbers have different signs, you are going to subtract the numbers. Regular subtraction, you guys learn in elementary. And the answer will have the sign of the biggest number. Now that's the big thing right there, guys. You have to look at the biggest number. So you guys have a 7 and a 2. Biggest number is 7. So make sure you check what sign 7 has. And that's going to be the answer. If 7 is positive, the answer is positive. If 7 is negative, the answer will be negative. Okay, so let's try a few examples. I have 10 different examples here. So I want to show you guys the first 2, and you guys already know the answer of those, but I need to explain, if you guys follow the rules that I show you guys, why the answer is the one you guys got. So looking at the number 1, you guys have a 6 plus a 2. So here's what I want you guys to do. 6, when you guys have a number with no sign on the left side, actually this number is positive. So if I put a plus next to the 6 on the left side, so there's a plus right there, that means it's a positive 6. If a number has a negative, well, obviously that number is negative. But if it doesn't have a sign, it is positive. We don't need to put that plus all the time. But we know that a number with no sign on the left side is positive. I'm going to put boxes or squares around the 2 numbers, including the sign they have on the left side. So if you guys look at the 6 right here, there's a plus, positive 6. The 2 has a plus next to it. So this 2 is actually positive. There's a plus 2. So that's a positive 2. So I'm going to put a box around that number, positive 2. Notice the signs, positive, positive. Those are the same sign. That's why you add the numbers. 6 plus 2 is 8. And if you guys look at the signs of the numbers, they're both positive. So my answer will be the same sign of the numbers. So it's a positive 8. But like we said, guys, we don't need that positive on the left side when the number is positive. So we just put 8. But my answer is 8. So this is how you add integers. Those are integers. Now in elementary, you guys learn how to add integers, but they only give you guys natural numbers, not negative numbers, only natural, positive numbers. Let's look at number 2 here. We have 6 plus 10. Once again, guys, that 6 has a plus on the left side, right there. So it is a positive 6. And if you guys put boxes around the numbers, positive 6 plus 10 over here, you guys have 16. All right, guys, so it is positive 16. Now, when you guys look at negative numbers and positive numbers, you can also look at it with money. If you guys have money in your pocket, let's say you guys have money in your hands pocket, that means that you have positive money. But if you guys owe money to someone, or you guys owe $5 to your friends, that means that you have negative money, which means you have to pay. You owe money to someone, to your friend or a person, any person. So when you guys look at negative and positive, you can also look at money. And if you guys pay someone, if you guys give money to someone, then you guys go back to those positive numbers. So I'll give you guys an example of that, but let's look at number 3 here. So we do have a -2 plus a -5. Now notice that this summation here, you guys have a parenthesis, and there's a negative number inside of the parenthesis. The -2, the one right here, that one doesn't have parentheses. Now that can happen. Sometimes you guys can have two integers adding, and one of them has a parenthesis, or both of them has a parenthesis. But if you guys look at the two numbers and the sign on the left side of the numbers, that's what you want to know what they have. So when you guys look at the 2, there's a negative, so I'm going to put the negative inside the box with the 2, and the 5 is inside the parentheses, but I am going to put a box around that -5. If you look at the numbers itself, not the plus in between, kind of ignore that sign. You guys don't need to look at it. You just want to know what sign the numbers have. So there's a negative next to the 2. There's a negative next to the 5. So guess what? Those two numbers are negatives. So when you guys have the same sign, the two numbers have the same sign, you add the numbers, just regular addition. 2 plus 5. Let's just do that first. 2 plus 5 is 7. So I'm going to put the 7 right here. But you guys notice that the two numbers have the same sign. So that means that my answer will have the same sign. There's a negative right here. So my answer is actually -7. Because, one more time, they have the same sign. So you add the numbers and you guys keep the sign of the numbers. So keep the negative because they're both negative, and you add 2 plus 5 is 7. 4, you guys have 20 minus 11. Now you guys already know the answer is 9, but let me explain using the rules that I gave you guys on the previous slide. 20 is a positive number because it has an invisible plus on the left side. So there's a positive. I'm going to put a box around the 20 right here. 11 has a minus on the left side. Now remember, a minus works like a negative. So when you guys have a minus 11, that's actually -11. So I'm going to put a box around the 11 and the minus inside of the box. So notice the two numbers. One is a positive and one is a negative. So when you guys have different signs, you subtract the numbers, and you always subtract biggest number minus smallest number. That's how you subtract biggest minus smallest number. So 20 minus 11 is 9. So let me put the 9 right here. And if you guys look at the sign of the biggest number, so between 20 and 11, this is the biggest number. The biggest number is positive. So my answer will be +9. Now we don't need that plus, so I just can put 9 right here. So my answer is 9. You guys can say +9, that's okay, but you guys don't need to write the plus next to the 9. Now here you guys have a -21 plus a -10. Now I want you guys to look at the signs next to the numbers. So I'm going to put boxes next to the numbers. Here we have a -21. It has a minus on the left side. The 10 is also inside the parentheses, and it has a negative on the left side. So I'm looking at this sign right here, not the plus in between. I'm looking at the sign right next on the left side of the 10. So the 10 is negative. Look at the two signs. There's a negative and a -10. -21, -10. So what that means, guys, is you guys have the same sign. So now you are going to add the two numbers, and you're going to keep the sign of the numbers. So regular summation, 21 plus 10, is regular sum, like elementary. So that's going to be 31. And I'm going to put the number 31 right here. But once again, the two numbers are negatives. So you guys are going to keep the negative next to the 31. So the answer is a -31 because the two numbers have the same sign. Number 6 has a -5 plus 2. So first of all, let's understand the problem here. You guys have a sign on the left side, a -5, and the 2 has a plus on the left side. So that's a +2. So let's go ahead and put the boxes. There's a -5 right here. There's a +2 over here. So you guys have different signs. The 5 is negative, so there's a negative. The 2 is positive, so one negative, one positive. When you guys have different signs, you subtract the numbers, regular subtraction, 5 minus 2, but you have to keep the sign of the biggest number. So first, let's go ahead and subtract the numbers. 5 minus 2, that's going to be 3. And the biggest number is negative. So let me show you guys right here. The biggest number is 5, which is negative. So my answer has to be a negative 3. Right there. Now, let me explain again the rules. When the two numbers have different signs, you subtract the numbers, biggest minus smallest number, and you guys keep the sign of the biggest number. So 5 is bigger than 2. So if 5 is negative, my answer is negative. This one here is a little bit tricky. You guys have 5 minus 20. So first of all, you have to understand what the signs are for the two numbers. So the 5 has a positive on the left side, so there's a plus right there. I'm going to put a box around the 5, so that's a positive 5. The 20 has a minus on the left side, so this is a negative 20. So I'm going to put a box around the 20 with the negative. So there's the negative 20 right there. And if you guys look at the two signs, there's a negative 20 and a positive 5. Negative, positive are different signs. So when you guys have different signs, you subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the biggest number. Now, when you subtract the numbers, biggest number minus smallest, same subtraction as elementary. 20 minus 5, that's going to be 15. So I'm going to put 15 right here. And I'm looking at the biggest number. Between 5 and 20, the biggest number is 20. And since 20 is negative, my answer has to be negative. So we have a negative 15 for my answer. This one here, we have a negative 6, so let me put a box around, and a positive 2. Let me put a box around that positive 2. Look at the signs, one negative, one positive. So that means that you guys are going to subtract. When you have different signs, subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the biggest number. So first, let's go ahead and subtract the numbers. 6 minus 2, that's going to be 4. So I'm going to put a 4 right here. And the biggest number, biggest one, is negative. So I'm going to have a negative 4 right there because you guys keep the sign of the biggest number. Now this one here, 33 plus negative 3. Notice the negative 3 is inside the parentheses, but it has a negative next to the 3, so we have a negative 3. 33, that one's a positive, so let me put a plus right here. Now guys, do you have to put the plus every time you guys add or subtract? No, you guys don't have to, but I'm doing that so you guys can see the plus and you know that's a positive number. But you guys don't have to write down the positive every time. You guys already know it's a positive when there's no sign on the left side. But it is a positive 33, and we have a negative 3 over here. So one positive, one negative, that means you subtract the numbers. They have different signs. You subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the biggest number. So first, let me subtract 33 minus 3. That's going to be 30. And the biggest number is 33. So positive is my answer. So positive 30. Once again, I don't need to write down the plus next to the number because I know that's a positive number. And this one here, negative 25, parentheses, plus 10. So let's go ahead and look at the signs. We do have a negative 25 right here, so that number is negative. Plus 10, well, that's a positive 10 because it has a plus on the left side. It's a positive. The two numbers have different signs. So you subtract the numbers and you keep the sign of the biggest number. So when you guys subtract biggest minus smallest, 25 minus 10, that's going to be 15 right here. And you guys keep the sign of the biggest number. And the biggest number is 25. So it's negative. So we have a negative 15 for our answer. Now, we have something that is called double negative that you guys have to really understand because every time I give this to my students, they always get confused with the double negatives. And let's go ahead and read what it says on the top. Double negatives is when you have a double negative, the number inside the parentheses becomes positive. then you guys are going to follow the rules for adding and subtracting integers. So when you guys have a negative and a parenthesis in between, that is a double negative. What am I talking about? Well, let's look at number 11 here. So this one, when you guys have a negative times a negative, or you have a negative next to each other with a parenthesis, this second number is going to become positive. Now, some of you guys probably heard keep, change, or keep, switch, change. That's what it is, guys. Those are different ways to just know what to do. I call it double negative because we do have two negative next to each other. So what's going to happen? Well, when you guys have a double negative, you are going to make the second number with a minus here. So there's a negative next to each other with the parenthesis in between. Now, be careful. A double negative is when you guys have two negative, not a positive and a negative. No, that's not double negative. It has to be a negative and a negative next to each other. So what happens, all of this right here is going to become plus the number. So I'm going to bring down the first number. The first number is 5. I'm going to bring down the plus 2 right there. So you guys add the numbers. 5 plus 2, you guys followed the rules that I gave you guys. The 5 is positive, the 2 is positive. I'm just going to put the boxes around. There's the plus for the 5. Positive, positive, add the numbers. So that's 7, 5 plus 2. And they're both positive, so my answer is positive 7. But the double negative is when you guys make the second number positive. So let's try this one. 11 minus negative 20. So that's a double negative because you guys have a negative and a negative right here. Double negative. There's a parenthesis in between. So we are going to change all of this right here into a positive 20. So there's my plus 20. Now the first number, you bring it down. You're not going to change the sign. That's why some teachers say keep, change. You keep the sign of the first one. So 11 says the same right there, and you just do the summation. 11 plus 20 is 31. But double negatives is when you guys change the second number into positive, and you guys follow the rules of integers, the ones I gave you guys in class. Now this one here is also a double negative. Once again, we do have a negative 7 minus a negative 2. There's the double negative, negative. So what that means, it becomes positive 2 right there, guys. When you guys have a double negative, it becomes positive. The first number says the same. You bring it down, negative 7 right there. Okay, the first number, keep the sign, same sign. Do not change the sign of the first number. If you guys look at two numbers here, they don't have the same sign. This one is a negative 7 and this one is a positive 2. So the rule is when you guys have different signs, subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the biggest one. So I'm going to subtract 7 minus 2, biggest minus smallest number, always do that. So that's going to be 5, and the biggest number is 7, and it's negative. So I need to keep the negative for my answer. So my answer is negative 5. Negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. So let's try a few more, guys, here. We do have a negative 10 minus a negative 13. So this one here is double negative, the ones that are next to each other with the parenthesis in between. So this will become positive, a negative, double negative. So I'm going to change all of this right here, guys, to a positive 13 right there. The first number says the same, negative 10 right there. So now you guys follow the rules. So let's go ahead and check the signs. We have a negative 10 and a positive 13. They have different signs, so you guys subtract the numbers and keep the sign of the biggest number. 13 minus 10 is 3, and the biggest number is 13, which is positive. So my answer is positive 3. Negative 10 plus 13 is positive 3. Now this one here is actually backwards of the double negative. But it is a way to write down a summation or a subtraction when you guys have double negative and you have to know what to do. So the big idea is, remember, when you guys have double negative, the number is going to turn positive. So if you guys have a negative and a negative like this with the parenthesis in between, all of this right here would turn positive. So first of all, let's turn that into positive. So all of this right here, positive 22. Now the second number here, notice, plus 5. This one doesn't have a negative. There's no double negative, so this one will stay the same. So I'm going to have plus 5 here. I bring down the plus 5. Do we need that plus next to the 22? Once again, guys, you do not need the plus, but it's a good visual for you guys to see that this number is positive 22. This number is positive 5, so they have the same sign. When the numbers have the same sign, you add the numbers and keep the sign of the numbers. So my answer is positive because the numbers are positive, and 22 plus 5 is 27. So positive 27 is the answer. Now this one is kind of extending the idea, the concept of double negatives. Notice you have to understand the problem. Notice that we have a negative and a negative next to each other with the parentheses. So this right here would turn positive. But if you look at these ones over here, we also have a negative and a negative next to each other. So all of this will also turn positive. So let me just turn this into a positive 11. I'm going to turn all of this right here into a positive 10. If you guys make the two boxes, positive 11 plus 10, they have the same sign. You guys add the numbers, 21, and keep the sign of the numbers, positive 21. So my answer is 21. And the last thing we're going to talk about is something called additive inverse. So first of all, let's go ahead and understand what is an additive inverse. Those two words, additive, you guys can kind of already figure that out. Additive is when you add, addition. Inverse, the word inverse means the opposite. So when you guys look at a number and you find the opposite of that number, that's the additive inverse, and you add that number, okay? So the opposite of the same integer is called an additive inverse. And I'll give you guys some examples here. The first example is the positive 7. Positive 7, the additive inverse is a negative 7. So the opposite of positive is negative. Same number, but it's different sign, one positive and one negative. If you guys look at the negative 10, the additive inverse is positive 10 because one's negative and one's positive. Same number, but they're opposites because one's a negative and one's a positive. They have different signs. So what happens when you guys actually add an additive inverse? When you guys have the opposite of the same sign. So let's figure that out. I'm going to add or subtract those two integers right here. You guys have a positive 10. One more time, guys, there's a plus on the left side of the 10. And we have a plus negative 10 in parentheses. Now, the negative is inside the parentheses with the 10. So we have a positive 10 and a negative 10. When you guys have different signs, you subtract the numbers. Positive 10 minus 10 is 0. Now remember, guys, keep in mind 0 is not negative or positive. It's an actual neutral number, but we do use the number 0. So when you guys add the additive inverse, you know it's the same number with different signs. Well, you will have 0 for your answer. So this one here, we have a negative 5 plus a 5. So notice the one inside the parentheses, it's a negative. The one outside plus 5 is positive. Negative 5 plus 5, they have different signs. Subtract the numbers, 5 minus 5, 0, right? Not negative, not positive, because it's neutral. So every time you guys add those two additive inverse, you have the answer equal to 0. 7 minus 7, 0. Now let me show you guys this one here. There's a positive on the left side of the 7. Minus 7 is negative. So they have different signs, one positive, one negative. 7 minus 7, 0. Alright guys, this concludes my video for adding and subtracting integers. This is the first part. The second part is going to be about multiplication and division of integers. So I want you guys to practice your math. If you guys like my videos, you can click that like button. You can also subscribe to my channel. And I'll see you guys later.